It's that time of the week when former football and sports stars share their stories. It happens all right here, right now, on Thursday Night Tailgate. With your hosts, Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari. Guys, have some fun. Enjoy the guests. Take it away.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for coming back and joining us tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate, your home of the NFL Alumni Association and the Gridiron Greats. TNT is brought to you by the great folks over at Kyvan Foods, Coastal Orthopedics, the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, and the French Lick Resort. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro, and tonight my co-host, Bob Lazzari, and I have 5 great guests that we are looking forward to sharing with you. I'm very excited about our first guest tonight, Matthew Laurance. If you're like me and a huge fan of the movie Eddie and the Cruisers, you'll remember Matthew as playing the bass player Sal Amato. If you've never seen the movie, it's become a cult classic from the 80s. The movie was great, the music was great, and Matthew was great in it. You may also remember him from his time on Saturday Night Live or his role playing Mel Silver, David Silver's father on Beverly Hills 90210. More recently, Matthew has been a radio announcer for local ESPN affiliates covering Duke basketball and now Kentucky basketball. And if you're a golf fan, he's a big golfer as well, has his own golf show, and he's close friends with former Red Sox knuckleballer Tim Wakefield. So we have a lot to talk to Matthew about tonight, and he's going to join us about 15 minutes from now. Then former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins will join us in his regular weekly time slot. We'll get Tony's thoughts on his alma mater, East Carolina. We'll also talk to Tony about, was he prepared for what life would be like after football? And we got that and a whole lot more for Tony when he joins us at the bottom of the hour. Following Tony, former Dodgers general manager Fred Clare will be making his TNT debut. We'll talk about Fred's 30 years in Dodgers Blue, which also happens to be the title of his book that you can find out on Amazon.com. 5-star rated book, by the way. He's also now working with a company called Scoutables, scoutables.com, which is a very cool analytical baseball site. So we look to Fred to talk about all of that and a whole lot more. He'll be along with us a little bit later this hour. We'll kick off hour number 2 with a return visit from former Eagles linebacker turned Eagles radio announcer Kevin Reilly will be here. We'll get his thoughts on whether Sam Bradford can be effective as the Eagles quarterback this season. How long is the leash for Bradford, and how do they protect him from the fans if he gets off to a very poor start? So we've got that and a bunch more with Kevin when he joins us at the top of the next hour. And then we'll round out the show with a return visit from former University of Georgia and Canadian Football League star wide receiver Terrence Edwards. We'll hear what Terrence thinks about Kirby Smart coming back to be the head coach of Georgia this season, what his expectations are for the Bulldogs this year, and we'll look back to his time as one of the top wide receivers up in the CFL when he's here about 90 minutes from now. So we got a really great show in store for you tonight. So sit back, relax, let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next couple of hours. But let's get things started by bringing in my co-host, Mr. Bob Lazzari. Bob, how are you tonight, my friend?
Good evening. How are you, Chris?
It's been a hectic one. I got to tell you, Bob, over the last several days, just getting the show started tonight with some computer issues, but we got that fixed just in the nick of time. And I tell you, Bob, I was out trying to play golf with my son this past weekend and took a couple of swings, and my back and my neck all went out. I was stiff as a board. I couldn't move without excruciating pain for a couple of days, but the joint's starting to get a little more limber as the week has gone on.
Should be happening to a guy that's 35 years old, Chris, right? You gotta,
You're right, it shouldn't. If I were only 35 years old.
Oh, well, hey, at least you got out there. I mean, you've been talking about the heat down there, and It's too bad, though. You finally do get out, and then you have to deal with it goes with the territory, right, Chris? No one needs to tell you what I've gone through as far as physical stuff over the past few years. And I think every day or two, Mother Nature kind of gives us a little tweak, reminding us of our age. And this is what we're dealing with now. But so let's have some fun tonight.
Yeah, there you go. So, Bob, I want to start things off by getting your thoughts on, something that's really high tech now, really coming into the NFL. The NFL is talking about putting microchips inside the footballs that initially will be used to measure where the ball goes through the uprights during the preseason. The concept is to measure, where the ball traveled through the uprights and see what impact it would have if they were to decide to narrow the uprights, making, field goals a little bit harder. In seasons to come, kickers made 85% of their field goal attempts last season. I think they want to try to make that a little more difficult. So if they made the uprights more narrow, how much narrower could it be to, not make it, stupid, to try to, kick it through, something too narrow. But what would the distance need to be to make it a little more challenging? And they're going to evaluate that data during the preseason, and we'll see where they go from there. Not that they could, change the uprights before this season, but they'll see how good the data is, and perhaps, they may look at it in coming season. Plus, also, Bob, they've talked about, this chip could really, change a lot of things. It could really measure, how it is, when a punter kicks the ball out of bounds and you see the referee sort of running down, the sideline there trying to say, oh, it went out right here, right? This chip could lead them, to put something in the sidelines, and then they could tell exactly where the ball crossed the sideline. They could use it to, for first downs. It could measure in the yardage. It could measure, did the ball break the plane of the goal? So there's a lot of things that they may decide to use a quote unquote smart football for in the future. But curious to get your thoughts, Bob, on high tech coming now to the football field and the football itself.
I read about it today, Chris, and it was very fascinating about all the different things that could be done with the chip inside the ball. Now, my first reaction was, how do you put a chip in the ball without increasing the weight of the ball? Of course, and as I was reading through an article, there was a professor at a university who said that was his concern also. But I guess the chip weighs about a half an ounce, Chris, so we're not talking Deflategate type changes in the football, right? So that was my first concern. But when you read, you covered a few of the things, and what I was most impressed of is what you just said about the punting out of bounds. To me, Chris, those guys, the referees who spot that ball, that is such a subjective thing. They can be 5 to 7 yards off when you think about it. I mean, I don't know how that ever, I understand why they do what they do. It has to be an estimate, but there probably have been times where those referees have been off, or the officials, 5 to 7 yards at least. So if this would be effective to doing that, that would be great. You could just see like a replay and the line coming down like a laser beam where it actually did go out. So that would be terrific there. As far as the kicking, I'm sure they're going to do this in the preseason and maybe on Thursday nights. They're going to, and I guess, Chris, they're probably going to use another high-tech mathematical formula when they get all the results, and they'll see how far guys are off, how many, they'll go with percentages, and that would tell them, we could probably narrow the uprights another so many inches and make it a little tougher, more competitive, more fan-friendly or whatever. So, but some of the things you mentioned are terrific. First downs, Chris, how many times have we had measurements where you still can't tell? Is that nose of the football doing that? This, you could see the line, just like they'll have, which other sports have done, like a yellow line coming across. But it's really fascinating stuff, and it tells you where high tech is going at every sport. We have the replay now in football. I don't know how much more high tech you can get in the future. We've talked about on the baseball side, are there going to be needs for home plate umpires in the future or whatever? But this is pretty fascinating, and it's great that they're just doing it in the preseason. See how it works out, Chris, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, it's going to be real interesting to find out, what impact, if at all, it's going to have if they decide to change the uprights, and even field goal accuracy within the uprights would be some interesting to see what the distribution is for how tight to the center and that sort of thing. So that's going to be interesting. But I think Bob, to your point, 7 yards 7 yards is a big deal, right? 7 yards,
sure
is, we all know, right? It's almost a first down, right? So to be that far off, and to be able to get that piece right, and to be able to get the first downs right, and to be able to, break the plane, get that right, I think, hey, if they can do it, and and they can prove that that's accurate, they use it right in other sports, right, Bob? We see now in tennis, right? Whether the ball's in or out or on the line and all of that sort of thing. So we see, how that works. So it just makes sense to me that, that we would bring this to the NFL. I'm intrigued by the idea. I think it sounds fantastic. As long as, there isn't anything that can, mess with the data. And the Patriots will be hacking into that thing, changing it around. So they got to make that hack-proof. We will have Hackgate. You asked a couple weeks ago, right? What's next? We've had Deflategate. We all the different gates with the Patriots. We'll have Hackgate. But I think it's great. I think it's a great idea and it's great technology, and I hope it moves forward. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and again, I think if they use it for anything, and I would be a fan of and it seems to me very possible for punts doing out of bounds. I'm less a fan of changing goalposts, because then, Chris, you're messing with history and things like that, right? But this gets
good point.
You said it correctly. They've used it in tennis. It is very accurate, and so I'm sure that would be my number one priority, and I'm sure punters would be in favor of it too. They want an accurate spot.
Right. Bob, any updates on guests for your show, Monday Night Sports Talk, along with our friend Tony D'Angelo?
We have a show this coming Monday, the 25th, Chris. We're going to be talking to former Major League outfielder Jim Gosker, who some Met fans around here might remember him. He actually played on the 69 and 73 teams, Chris, both who won pennants. But amazingly enough, the guy never got into or was on a World Series roster, because in 69 he came up too late, and in 73 he was sent to the minors. But he played on both teams. He was a very good outfielder, Chris. Defensively, terrific arm, which probably kept in the league for 10 years, because I think he only had 226 lifetime, but he will have some great stories for the 5 teams he played with, and this ought to be fun.
Ah, very good. Be sure to check out Bob and Tony. Again, their show, Monday Night Sports Talk. You can stream any of their archive shows by going online to mondaynightsports.net or checking them out on their YouTube channel, Monday Night Sports. All right, everyone, like we do here every week on Thursday Night Tailgate, we want to send out a big hello and an even bigger thank you to our military personnel listening in around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network. We can't say thank you enough for doing what you do to protect all of us in our way of life. For everyone else listening in, thank you as well, and we hope you'll join us in thanking the brave men and women serving in every branch of our military. If you happen to see a member of our military, whether you're in the airport, in a restaurant, just out and about in your daily lives, please stop for a moment and tell them thank you. They are our true heroes. We also want to thank our veterans for your service and the sacrifices that you and your families have made for us over the years. Big thank you as well to Sean Cruz and all the wonderful folks over at the Armed Forces Radio Network. It is such an honor for us to have Thursday Night Tailgate be a part of your network. You can find our show by going to armedforcesradionetwork.org. And veterans, please continue to check out globalvoiceforveterans.org for news and articles that you're going to find both interesting and beneficial to you. Again, globalvoiceforveterans.org. TNT is brought to you by the great folks over at Kaiven Foods, owned and operated by our good friend and former Bengals and Falcons tight end and TNT Hall of Famer, Reggie Kelly. If you want to be king of the grill this summer, it is a must that you use Kaiven Sweet Barbecue Sauce, ranked number 15 in the world by Barbecue Superstars. This barbecue sauce is a must for the big game, for your tailgating needs. It is available at select Walmarts and Kroger's throughout the eastern half of the country. For locations, online orders, and recipes, check out their website at Kaiven82.com. And Kaiven is spelled K-Y-V-A-N. And if your local Walmart doesn't carry the Kaiven Sweet Barbecue Sauce, well, request it. I'm sure they'll be happy to add it to their shelves for you. TNT is also sponsored by Dr. Peter Candelora and the great folks over at Coastal Orthopedics. If you're dealing with joint pain, whether it's in your shoulders, your elbows, your hips, your knees, your feet, stop doing nothing and start doing what the Gridiron Greats do to get relief. Contact Coastal Orthopedics. They can get you back to enjoying life. For more information, you can check them out online at bone-dr.com. Baseball season, we're halfway through, right? Just had the All-Star game. if you love the game and you're looking for a great place to take your family this summer for vacation, a weekend away, you're going to love the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. It is a very cool experience for everyone in the family because you get to walk their live production line and you see the bats being manufactured right there in front of you. They got a lot of cool exhibits. Still have the Ripley's Believe It or Not exhibit. It's got some bizarre baseball treasures for you. They recently unveiled their new life-size statue of Jackie Robinson, which is amazing. Don't miss the bat vault. You hear me bragging about that every week here on TNT. You get to actually hold game-used bats from so many of the game's greatest legends. To find out more information about the museum and to book your visit, go to sluggermuseum.com. Also, don't forget our friends up at the French Lick Resort up in French Lick, Indiana. You want to talk about a fantastic place to stay and play golf. If you love the game of golf, you know, it is a fabulous resort. 3 golf courses right there on the property. If you just want to go away and get away, simply relax and enjoy yourself, well, you can do it there as well. And again, they're golf courses. You got a Pete Dye course designed there. You got a Donald Ross design course there. The Pete Dye course hosted last year's Senior PGA Championship and the LPGA Legends Championship. Donald Ross course was the site of Walter Hagen's PGA Championship victory back in 1924. They got a great spa on the property. And oh, by the way, they got a casino right there for you as well. To find out more information and to book your stay, go to FrenchLick.com. All right, now joining us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is Matthew Laurance. You know Matthew from so many great movies and TV shows that he's been a part of. He does radio now. If you're like me and you're a big fan of the movie Eddie and the Cruisers, you remember him as the bass player Sal Amato. He had a reoccurring role in Beverly Hills 90210 playing Mel Silver, David Silver's father. He was in the movie Streets of Fire, reuniting him with his Eddie and the Cruisers co-star Michael Paré. He played Ron D'Alessandro in St. Elmo's Fire. That was Demi Moore's character, her friend. He was a decorator in that movie. He was a part of the cast for the 6th season of Saturday Night Live. He starred in the show Duet with Mary Page Keller in the late 80s, also appearing in the show 30-something as well. More recently, he's been a sideline analyst for Duke's men's basketball team. He's now Kentucky basketball and football fans. You'll see him regularly on UK Game Day on WLXG in Lexington, Kentucky. And we're very honored to have him with us tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Matthew, Chris, and Bob here. Thanks for coming on the show.
Good evening. Hey, guys. First of all, that was a really good introduction, and I'm honored to be with you guys, and I'll tell you why. Nobody, with everything I've done in my life, nobody has acknowledged the great NFL career that I had. You know,
is that right?
I mean, I find it hard to believe. And finally, Thursday Night Tailgate, you have all these great football players and the Players Association tie-in and everything. I'm honored. And I'm glad somebody finally recognized me for the NFL talent that I have.
Fantastic.
Add to the resume, right?
Yeah. That's right. So Matthew, I'm a huge fan of the Eddie and the Cruisers movie. I love the movie. I love the music. You know, I'm just curious for you, what was it like for you? Because the movie didn't do well, right, when it came out in theaters when it was released in 83. But a year later, HBO starts playing it, and suddenly it's a big success. The soundtrack goes top 10. Did you have any notion about what a cult following that movie would end up having, and that 33 years later, people still want to talk to you about it?
You know, guys, it's the most interesting thing in the world because on any film, other than, you know, the films now, the Hunger Games and the big films, you know what you're getting into. When you do an independent movie, especially back then, you read the script and you know the director and you kind of get to know the people you're working with, but you really have no idea how it's going to turn out. And we worked really hard on that movie for about 10 weeks. And when it came out, it was gone in 2 weeks in the theaters. It was really disappointing. And then, as you said, that was kind of in cable's infancy, and HBO put it on, and I forget what exactly the time frame, but pretty quickly the album went triple platinum. And all of a sudden we knew, wait a second, all these people are now seeing this movie. I don't think any of us had any idea that this many years later we would still be talking about it and I'm here in Lexington, Kentucky now. People all the time ask me about it, and it's pretty amazing. I don't think any of us had any idea that it would have this kind of impact. And I'm glad you liked the movie, Chris and Bob. I want to tell you an interesting story. Just hearing your talk, listening while I was on hold, and I truly am. I mean this seriously. I'm honored to be on with you guys, and the Armed Forces Network it's really important to me. And I'll tell you a quick story. Because of my acting, I got to play in probably 150 celebrity golf tournaments over the years. And we used to play in a tournament in Winston-Salem called the Crosby, which started out as the Bing Crosby Clam Bake in Pebble Beach. And then Catherine Crosby moved it to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And for many, many years, I played in it. And it was the biggest celebrity tournament any of us played in. There were big leaderboards, and you won money to give to charity. The winning team, it was two-man teams, and the winning team, I think, split $120,000 to give to charity, whatever charity you wanted. It was a big deal. And they had hundreds of people out at this tournament, and it was 3 days, and Friday I'm walking down the fairway, and there are people walking outside the ropes, and I look over, and there's a guy. He's got a long beard, and he's got a camo hat on, and it's obvious he's walking with the group that I'm playing with. And I came out the next day, and there was the guy again. Saw him walking on about the fifth or sixth hole, and finally I walked over to him, and I said, I don't know why you're doing this, but are you walking with me? He said, yes, I am. I said, well, I'm flattered, but I'm really not that good, and I'm not that big a celebrity. I'm kind of confused as to why you're doing this. And he said to me, I saw in the paper, I live about 100 miles from here, and I saw in the paper you were going to be here, and I wanted to come meet you because you got me through Desert Storm. And I said, what do you mean?
Wow.
He said, I was in Desert Storm, and I'm from New Jersey, and there were a bunch of guys from New Jersey with me. And every single day in the video tent that we had there, we would watch at least part of Eddie and the Cruisers every day for the whole time we were there. Sometimes we'd watch the whole movie. Sometimes we'd watch a scene. He said, but I get choked up talking about this. He said,
no doubt.
I had to come say hello to you and meet you and thank you for, so the fact that I'm sitting listening to you thank our not only our servicemen and women, but our veterans, I'll never forget that moment and what Eddie and the Cruisers meant to these guys.
That's amazing. That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that, Matthew.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and just a couple of other questions about the movie before we move on to some other topics. But I'm curious. As I was kind of doing additional research, and I've seen the movie, Matthew, I probably 24 times. But one of the things that I learned, at least in some of the research, said you actually learned how to play bass. You didn't know how to play bass, but you learned how to play bass for that movie. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. And it's when I got cast in that movie, I played a couple of instruments growing up, but I didn't play the guitar. And originally, that part was written, Sal was the lead guitar player, the way it was written. And I went in to meet with Marty Davidson and his sister, Arlene, who was the writer and co-producer with Marty. And I was just telling, I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and I was just explaining this to them the other day. Because I walked into the living room and a song was on. I started playing air guitar, and they were laughing at me. I walked in and had this meeting about the movie, and Marty, after we talked about the acting part of it, he said, do you play guitar? And I said, no, but I'm the best air guitar player you ever saw. And he said, really? I said, if I stood in front of you, I could convince you that I had a guitar in my hand. That's how good I am, and I could do the same thing with a regular guitar. So he said, you want to do that now? I said, I'll be right back. I went to my car. I got a cassette of Black Magic Woman by Santana, and I came back in the office and I put it in, and I know every note in that song, and I played air guitar, and that was I think one of the big reasons I got the part in the movie. And Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes, Southside was the musical consultant on the movie who taught us kind of to be a band. And he worked with us, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's another cult figure. Anyway, I had a lot of musician friends, and I said, I'm not doing this unless I can play all these songs. I don't want any of my friends to say, because as an actor, there's nothing worse than somebody doing something and you know they're faking it. And so I learned how to play all the songs on the bass. We did all the music to playback, but I learned how to play all those songs. It was really important to me. And even now, when I hear one of the songs, I'll break into some air guitar on the bass and go through it again.
So when you're driving down the road and you're listening to the radio, and out of nowhere, On the Dark Side comes on, what goes through your mind?
It's what's really funny is these are great questions, by the way. I work with I'm on ESPN radio in Lexington, but we have 6 stations in our cluster, and one of them is a classic rock station. And it happened the other day. I was driving into work, and the commercial was over, and all of a sudden On the Dark Side came on. And what's so weird about it, not only that it brings back memories of me doing the movie, but that's the premise at the beginning of the actual movie, is that Tom Berenger's character, Frank, is driving in his car and he hears the songs that the band did.
Right.
So it's kind of got a double, whammy for me. It's not only that it reminds me of all the memories that I have associated with that movie, but it's kind of ironic that that's what happened in that movie at the same time.
Right.
It's very cool, to be honest with you. It's really cool.
I bet it is. Bob, questions for Matthew?
And Matthew, again, I speak for Chris and myself. It's an honor to speak with you. And, I was looking at your bio, Matthew, and having lived in New York City, gone to school there, and I know you were born in New York City, raised on Long Island, and you mentioned Southside Johnny. It seems to me that you still have that tie. Is New York still in your blood?
It'll always be in my blood. The thing is, my mom, I grew up on Long Island, went to school in Boston, and then moved to the city when I was in acting school for about 8 or 9 years, and then went to L.A. My father passed away a long time ago. My mom lived on Long Island until about 4 years ago, and she moved down to Myrtle Beach, where my twin brother Mitchell lives, and that's where I am right now, actually. I brought my boys down to see her, and so between work and my 2 sons and my wife's work schedule, I don't get back to New York hardly at all because my mom's not there anymore. But it's funny, living in Kentucky, I'm a New Yorker. People kid me about it. Some people give me crap about being a Northerner. But you know this, Bob. You're born in New York and you spend a lot of your early years in New York. You'll always be a New Yorker, always. I'm still the biggest Yankee fan in the world. I'm the biggest New York Giant fan in the world. I refuse to talk about or think about the New York Knicks ever since Isaiah Thomas showed up on the scene here. I'm done with them. It's the truth. I mean, I'm kind of half kidding, but it's the truth. I hate what's happened to that franchise. And, but otherwise I'm a New Yorker through and through.
And Matthew, again, back to the acting as a profession. You've done film and TV. Did you prefer one over the other, Matthew? And is one more difficult to do than another? Well,
it depends. The only difference between film and TV is what you're doing, the actual project you're working on. When you're doing a film, everybody knows about the film, and you work for X number of days or X number of weeks, and You go in every day and you shoot about 5 pages of a script. And it's the same if you're doing a movie of the week that's on TV, or an hour TV show is pretty much like doing a film, except every 8 days you're shooting a new episode. But it's pretty much the same thing as a film. I was blessed to not only guest star on a ton of sitcoms, but I had a sitcom on Fox for 3 years, as you mentioned, called Duet. And that's a totally different ball game. That's the greatest job in the world, doing a sitcom, because you go in usually on Tuesday morning, you have a read-through of the script. God, this was a great job. You have a read-through of the script, and then in the afternoon, the writers start rewriting. You rehearse Wednesday and Thursday, and Friday you come in about noon, and you shoot the show at night, and then you have Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off, and you usually do 3 shows 3 weeks in a row, and then you have a week off. And you get paid pretty good money to do that. So in terms of jobs, that's the one you want to get. You want to get on a hit sitcom, but it's, you know, the biggest difference in any kind of acting is between theater and TV or film. I was lucky enough to go to a great acting school in New York and then study with a couple of great teachers, and did theater for the first 6 or 7 years of my career. And there is nothing like doing live theater in front of an audience, because it's, you know, you only get one shot at it, and there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you know, that's why theater is the best. The rest of it, you screw up and you get to do it again as many times as it takes. And, you know, that's pretty cool, but doing theater is really, really the best acting as far as I'm concerned.
Matthew, Bob and I are, you talk about being a Yankee fan. Bob and I co-host a Red Sox show called View from the Lone Red Seat on Tuesday nights. And I know in our communication back and forth, you're good friends with a guy who's near and dear to our hearts, and that's Tim Wakefield. How'd you meet Tim?
Well, this is pretty funny. You know, it always made me laugh, because growing up, when you're a Yankee fan, you know, it's the Red Sox and the Yankees and all that stuff. But then I ended up going to school in Boston for 4 years, and so it sounds weird, but I loved the Red Sox too. When they were playing the Yankees, I rooted for the Yankees, but other times I loved the Red Sox. I loved going to Fenway, and I kind of got involved in that culture because of going to school there. And one year, you'll love this. I can't remember what year it was, in the mid-'90s maybe. I got invited to play in a tournament in Atlanta, Phil Necro's tournament down there. And I went, and there was this guy, Tim Wakefield, at the tournament. And we hit it off really quickly. We were in the lobby of the hotel waiting to go out to the golf course. And everybody was kind of kidding with everybody, and I knew Tim and the knuckleball and all that stuff. I mean, I knew of him. And so I said, you know, it's really great to meet you. As a matter of fact, I do an impression of you. And Tim said, oh, really? I said, yeah, here. And I went into a wind-up, kind of slow motion, and threw this knuckleball, and then I snapped my head around as if somebody had belted it out of the park. And everybody kind of laughed, and then Tim goes, you know what's really weird is I do an impression of you, too. I said, really? He said, okay, here we go. Ready? We're getting ready to shoot. Here we go. Matthew Laurance, take 48. He said.
That's great.
And it started from there, and over the years, those couple of years, I played with him at the Necro tournament, and then this is why Tim is the guy that he is. He's, for years and years and years, has had a tournament in Melbourne, Florida, which is where he's from, in support of the Space Coast Early Intervention Center, which is just an unbelievable project that he started when he first started playing professional baseball, and committed to helping these people with developmentally disabled kids even when he wasn't making a lot of money. And they had a little tournament, and he said, whatever we raise, I'll match, even when it was first starting out. And as his career got bigger and he started to make money, he did that every single year. And they raised a ton of money, and he would match it every year. It's still going on. And I was lucky enough to play in that tournament. I haven't been there in a couple of years now, but I was lucky enough to play in that tournament for many, many years. And Tim, through the years, you know, I haven't seen him in a couple of years now, and we text each other back and forth. But he's truly one of the great people in any walk of life, not just sports. He's the winner of the Roberto Clemente Award, and that'll tell you all you need to know about him. And I just love him to death. He's like a brother.
We are talking to Matthew Laurance here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Matthew, just a couple more before we let you go. You're now on ESPN Radio, so now you've made the transition from doing movies and television to being a sideline analyst, first for Duke and now Kentucky. Talk about that transition.
Yeah, I'm actually not doing it for Kentucky now, but it's, you know, I don't think about it enough until somehow I get reminded of how incredibly blessed I've been in my life. I had a friend that said to me one time, nobody has had a successful acting career and done the things in sports that you've done. And I don't ever think about it. It's pretty amazing. In 1999, actually in the early 90s, I was invited to play again, golf. I was invited to play in the Duke Children's Classic. And I went down, and that very first tournament I played in, I was friendly with P.J. Carlissimo, the coach. And I got down there, and P.J. was there. He said, we're going to go to dinner with Mike Krzyzewski and his wife and Jim Boeheim and a bunch of coaches. So I went to dinner, and I hung out with these guys, and I ended up sitting next to Coach K, and we had a long talk that night. And I got very friendly with him over the next few years. He had 3 daughters who were insane about 90210, and I used to call them and tell them what was going to happen the next week, and I'd send them scripts before the shows were on, and I went to a couple of games at Cameron. I just got very close to the family. And in 1999, I went there to play in the Jimmy V tournament. And boy, it sounds like I'm a professional golfer, doesn't it? I'm really not that good.
On the link,
golf show too, so.
Yeah, I do. But in 99, I went there. I was having dinner with Mike and Mickey, and he said, how you doing? I said, you know what? I'm miserable. I hate L.A. I've been here for 18 or 19 years, and the last couple of years, I said, I hate living there. I hate the business now. I just hate being there. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to leave, and I don't know where I'm going to go, but I really got to get out of there. And he basically said, you should do sports. You know as much as any of the people doing it. You've been on camera for 20 years. So I went back to L.A., and the more I thought about it, the more I liked the idea. And I called Mike and asked him if he would call ESPN for me. And he said, well, you know, I've been thinking about this since we talked. He said, why don't you come here and work with us? I said, and do what? What are you talking about? He said, just if you have faith in me, I'm working on some stuff. Just come here. He said, you can stay with us for a little while if you want to. I said, no, I have plenty of friends there. And I sold all my stuff, drove cross country with my mom, and went to his office, and he said, I want you to do radio for us. I said, I've never done radio. He said, well, you know, you can do this. I want you to sit behind our bench. We've never done this. I want you to do analysis, but from behind our bench. I want you to get in the huddles with us, you know, everything, and give a perspective that's different. And so I knew they were going to Maui that year. I said, do I get to travel with you? He said, yeah, you're on the team. I said, I'm in. Count me in. Here. And that, so for 10 years, I worked with Bob Harris and John Roth. I was the third guy, and for the Duke Radio Network, sitting right behind Coach K for 10 years. And, you know, that's, other than my family, that's the second biggest blessing in my life, is being a part of that family. And then, to wrap it up, the golf tournament here in Lexington 20-odd years ago. I met a girl here, and we kind of went out that summer. I went back to L.A., didn't talk to her for 10 years. And then I came back to play in the tournament. Her cousin came up to me and said hello. I gave him my phone number and said, here, tell Shannon to call me. I'd love to say hello to her. And she called me, and now we have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old. And she's from Frankfort, Kentucky, and I wanted to find a way to get back so she could be near her family and my boys could be near their cousins. And I was offered the job with ESPN Radio in Lexington to do the UK pre- and post-game shows and a daily show, drive time show. And the last 4 years, I've also done a golf show on Sunday morning. And so we moved here. We moved there 7 years ago, and that's what I've been doing ever since. I'm tired.
Wow.
Just from talking about my life, I'm tired.
That's great stuff.
Yeah.
Matthew,
Yep.
we got so many things that we'd love to ask you. I'm sure Bob's got a ton of questions. I got a ton of questions. I hope you'll come back and spend some more time with us at some point. You're absolutely fantastic.
Well, anytime. And I mean that, anytime, guys. I really appreciate what you both do, and ever since you got in touch with me, I've been doing a little homework, and I've been, you guys are fantastic in everything that you do. There are so many platforms you're on now, and you're to be congratulated too. Anytime you would like me to come back, it would be my great pleasure. Believe me.
I appreciate you for
Very
saying
nice.
that, Matthew. Matthew,
Okay.
let our listeners know, how can they follow you? How can they find you and stay up to date with all the things you're doing?
The best way is on Twitter. It's at ML on WLXG. That's the best way to get a hold of me.
All right,
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
All right.
Matthew, all the best to you and your family. We look forward to catching up with you again, hopefully soon.
Yes, sir. See you guys.
All right.
It's a pleasure.
Take care,
Thank
Matthew. Wow, that was Matthew Laurance. Again, for if you love the movie Eddie and the Cruisers, you know Matthew Laurance played Sal Amato in that movie. So many things he did over the course of his career. Now on the sports side, Bob. I tell you what, Bob. We've been privileged to talk to many athletes and people on this show. I've never been more moved and had a better time than the opportunity right there to talk to Matthew Laurance.
Oh, Chris, he's such a versatile human being. For all he's done, it's amazing. We could talk to him about film, theater, TV, and then the sports is just a whole different animal.
Right.
We could talk everything with him. So, you're right. We haven't even touched the surface. Quite the resume. And I just love guys who are so versatile like himself. And on top of that, he's a terrific man and appreciates some good things in life. So hope to get him on and talk again soon, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely right. All right, now back with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is another one of our great friends and our regular guest here every single week here on Thursday Night Tailgate, which we are very blessed to have. And that's former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins. Hey, Tony, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing fantastic. How you doing,
Tom.
Chris and Bob?
Good, man.
Really well, thank you. So, Tony, I saw a picture that you posted on Facebook not that long ago of the East Carolina bookstore. Got your name and number up there on the wall as one of the ECU greats. Did you know that they had done that, or was that a surprise when you walked in there?
Well, I kind of figured that I may be in there. I hadn't been in there in a while. I went in there. I was going in there to get some, because I'm doing a tournament down here in August 1st. So I was going there to get some footballs for the tournament, and I was like, wow, my name's up here. I was kind of like, that's pretty neat.
Yes.
So the guy told me, he said it's been up there for 2 years now.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And speaking of your East Carolina Pirates, Tony, kind of looking back to last season, maybe looking ahead a little to this coming season. 5-7 last year, had a nice win over Virginia Tech. How do you think the team size is up this year? For their chances, sort of overall, and particularly in the American Athletic Conference.
Well, we're looking to do a little damage. So, we got a whole new quarterback, got a new coaching staff. So, the transition is gonna truly be on how the coaches and the players get along. Don't know too much about Coach Mo. I know he was an assistant at Duke, but I met him a couple times. Seems like a really nice guy, but nice guys, and he's probably a nice guy, but he's a great coach. So that's what we're anticipating, that everything will work out for us this year. It's going to be a tough year. We got another tough schedule with a new quarterback coming in. We got a lot of players at the skill position that should do some damage for us, but we're optimistic, and hopefully we can be at least 3-1 in our first 4 games, and if we can do that, then we got a chance to really do some damage this year.
Bob, questions for Tony?
And Tony, also on social media, I continue to see pictures of these grandchildren you have, which are, the kids are just so beautiful. And I'm saying to myself, there's some good genes in that family, but somebody has to have hair, right?
I keep posting. I said, I know these people are tired of me posting these pictures of my grandkids, but every time one of my daughters sends me a picture, I was like, oh my God, he's so beautiful. I got to put him on there, man. Sometimes I even apologize. I'm sorry, but I had to show you guys this picture. My granddaughter is beautiful.
Yeah. All in the genes, right?
Yeah, man.
Hey, Tony, let's go back to East Carolina. You're one of those few pros who actually played 4 years in college. And, the whole new thing now, Tony, as you know, these guys are coming out at age 20, and the college has been put aside. And I know the money is huge these days, and it's almost like you can't blame them. But what's your whole idea on these guys just using college as a minor league in any sport, Tony?
Well, I think the big thing is depending on the character of the player. You got a lot of players that have good character that are able to adjust to getting that money at one time. I think the NFL is doing a really good job as far as kind of coaching the players to have a rookie podium and different things like that, where they're trying to teach the young guys what to expect and things they shouldn't do, things they shouldn't do. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. But I think the biggest thing is understanding, and it was for me as well. I did 4 years. My last semester of my senior year, I had 11 credits left to graduate, and I stopped going to class because my agent told me, you got to go down to Miami and get ready for the NFL Combine. So I could have stayed right there at East Carolina and got ready for the NFL Combine and probably did the same thing. But a lot of these guys are not graduating on time. I had the opportunity to graduate on time, and I didn't. And so when they don't graduate on time, it's really tough to go back, because now you're living the dream. You're living the life that you always dreamed about. So why would I go back to school now? But the thing that they don't think about is that, football career, I mean, it could end 1 year, 2 years. The average player only plays 3.5 years in the NFL. And so they got to understand how important that education is, because once the football career is over with, now what are you going to do? I mean, what plan do you have to do? And if you don't, take care of your money the way you should take care of it while you're playing, once the crowd stops cheering, now you're out there all alone. You don't have an education. Now what are you going to do? And if you don't have any money, it's even tougher. So I think one of the big things for me is letting these guys understand, if you do come out, man, during the off season, take some courses, take some online courses, and get that degree, because that degree is going to open up opportunities for you, create a lot of open a lot of doors for you as well, because your career, because even if you play 8, 9, 10, 12 years, you're still just 33 years old. You're 33 years old, and now what you gonna do? You got a long life to live, and if you don't have that degree, man, it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough for them. So one of the things I think the NFL is implementing the going back to school to a lot of the players. But it's tough, man. For a player to go back to school because now you got your OTAs, you get your training all through the off season. And it's hard for a young kid understanding that, man, I need to go back to school because I'm not going to be doing this all my life. Back when I was playing, man, it's crazy as it may sound, I thought I could play football forever.
Yeah.
And you can't play football forever, man. So it's something that the guys that are mature and have good character, I have no ifs, ands, or buts about them. Go and get that money, make as much money as you can, but at the same time, you got to understand, you got to get that degree. You want to make sure you get that degree because that piece of paper is very valuable.
And, Tony, what was East Carolina like off the gridiron? I mean, describe for our listeners maybe the campus itself. How did you like it? And, we hear so much about Carolina universities, but not as much as probably we should about East Carolina.
Well, I don't know how long ago this has been, but back when we were in school, East Carolina was one of the biggest partying schools in the country. I wasn't much of a partier back when I was in school. I didn't start partying until I got into the league. But I mean, East Carolina is a party school. It's in a small rural town in Greenville. Without East Carolina, Greenville would be probably nothing. I mean, really, to be honest with you. So. It was a lot of fun, though. Don't get me wrong. I tell every kid, that I get in contact with, man, you want to experience the college life. It's one of the best times that I had, going to school, getting those relationships with guys that you played with, and even if you didn't play, you're going to have so many relationships that you run into from people all over the country, and it's just a great experience. And East Carolina was a great experience for me. I love East Carolina. I mean, right now, I'm back here living in Greenville, so you know how much I love it. So it's a great town, it's a great area, and East Carolina has been very good to me, and I'm very, very happy that I'm a part of that organization, that system.
And Tony, just one more before we let you go, and you touched on this just a moment ago. When your playing career ended, when you said, "Hey, I thought I could play football forever," when the career was over, were you emotionally ready for life, without football?
Are you kidding me? No. I had no idea what I was going to do, man. I was lost, and and with me, I was in a bad place too at that time. My story. I went through depression, thoughts of suicide, and different things like that, and it's like that for a lot of guys, man. And it's really sad to say, but there's guys that are still, as a football player, especially when you've been playing football all your life since Pop Warner, since you're 9 years old, you've been playing football, and now it's all over. You don't play football ever. You won't play football ever again. And so now, what are you going to do? And it's a transition that if you're not ready for it, it'll throw you for a loop, and it's still throwing guys for a loop today.
Right.
Unfortunately, a lot of guys are not prepared. Once they get out of football, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. They don't have that education because they didn't go back and graduate. So now they don't want to graduate. They don't want to go back to school. They have no idea what to do. They're not business-minded. We're not businessmen. We're football players. That's what we do. That's what we've been doing all our lives, is playing football. So, it's a tough transition for a lot of guys. And again, I recognize the NFL. They're doing a lot now for a lot of guys, even us older guys. They're giving us different opportunities where we can, different businesses and different things that we can go to and to start businesses and different things like that. But it's a tough situation for a lot of guys once they stop playing something that they've been playing all their lives. Because see, when you play football in the NFL, it doesn't seem it's our job, but it doesn't seem like a job. It's a game. It's a thing we love to do. It's fun. I mean, it's just a game to us. It's not a job, and we don't consider it being a job. It's a game that we love to play, and once the crowd stops cheering, now what do you do? And so that's the big thing now. So I want guys to know, man, you got to get that education. You got to make sure you graduate. I finally went back and got mine, and I'm very glad I did. And so to me, it's something that I think every NFL player should understand and recognize that they can't play football forever. They're their career is going to be over within their 30s. You know, when you're in your 30s and you're not playing football no more, and it's like, wow, what do I do now? So,
right. Tony, before we let you go, remind our listeners how they can keep up to date with all the great things you're doing and follow you online and over social media as well.
TonyCollinsFoundation.com. We have our annual tournament up in my hometown on this upcoming Monday. Really looking forward to that. Love going back home and seeing all my classmates and seeing all my hometown people. Man, I love. It's my best tournament. I love doing that tournament because I get a chance to give back to my community where I grew up at, and just having a lot of fun and being with my family, and I call my family the people that I grew up with, so they're my family. So TonyCollinsFoundation.com and TonyCollinsProjects.com. We're pushing my book, because every book that we sell, we're helping the kid helping the kid go off to college. So TonyCollinsProjects.com. If you want to get a book, I'll even sign it for you. The book is free, but my signature will cost you $15.
All right. Indeed. Tony, thank you so much for being here again this week. We look forward to catching up with you again next week. In between now and then, all the best to you, your family, all your grandchildren. Take care, my friend. We look forward to the next week.
Keep posting those pics.
You guys have a
That's
great
right.
week.
All right, you too,
Thank
Tony.
you, Tony.
That is former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins. We are going to get to our next guest, Fred Clare, on the other side of this station identification.
This is Christine Lisi, and you're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate, where NFL stars go to tell their stories with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
And now joining us on the Kaiven Foods guest line is former Dodgers general manager Fred Clare. Let me remind you a little bit more about Fred's background. He's from a small town of Jamestown, Ohio, which is about halfway between Cincinnati and Columbus. He was a sports writer and an editor for the Whittier Daily News and the Pomona Progress Bulletin, as well as the Long Beach Independent Press Telegraph. In the spring of 1969, he was covering the Dodgers during spring training in Vero Beach when an assistant public relations department position became available with the Dodgers, and they hired him. In 1975, he became the Dodgers VP of Public Relations. 1987, Dodgers President Peter O'Malley named Fred their general manager, and the Dodgers went on to win the World Series the following season. Fred was with the Dodgers was the GM of the Dodgers from 87 to 1998. He's written a book titled My 30 Years in Dodger Blue, which is available on Amazon.com, and it's a 5-star rated book, folks. Since leaving the Dodgers, amongst other things, Fred has been a columnist and an analyst for MLB.com. He's hosted his own radio show called The GM's Corner on MLB.com radio, and he is currently working with Scoutables, which is a great baseball analytics site. You go check it out, Scoutables.com. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a moment. But we are honored that Fred is with us tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Good evening, Fred. Chris and Bob here. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Fred.
Chris and Bob, good to be with you.
So, Fred, I kind of get started by, I guess, going back to near the beginning. Like I said in your intro, you grew up in a small town in Ohio. So, Reds fan, Indians fan, who did you root for growing up as a kid?
Oh, yeah, definitely the Cincinnati Reds, and my first game at Crosley Field, and the first time I saw Crosley Field, and I had always been a fan, but had the opportunity to go to Crosley. My parents taking my brother and sister and I to the game, and I knew at that point I wanted to spend my life in baseball, and so it was magic, and great growing up in a small town, and great introduction to baseball, and I was very fortunate to spend 30 years with the Dodgers, and all of my career involved with sports.
So, speaking of magic, kind of take us through, how does a kid from a small town in Ohio get himself in the right position to become a PR assistant with the LA Dodgers?
Well, I wanted to stay involved with sports, and I've had the opportunity to teach at USC and Cal State and Long Beach State, and what I tell the students is follow your passion. What is it that you enjoy? What do you want to do? What drives you? And mine was always sports, and I knew my talent would only take me so far, and I didn't know whether I would be a coach or how I would stay connected, but it was through journalism and writing that enabled me to stay involved with sports. That led to the opportunity to become the publicity director of the Dodgers, as you mentioned, and then I moved from there, from the publicity director to VP Public Relations and Marketing to Executive Vice President and General Manager.
Mm-hmm. So, Fred, I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit because you got so many great things you've done through the course of your career. But I was kind of reading 1977. I read that you wanted to make opening day special that year. Typically, the Dodgers home opener was played at night with an average crowd of about 34,000 in a stadium that held 56,000. And prior to moving to LA, the Brooklyn Dodgers had always opened with a day game. So you decided to kind of change things up in 77, do a day game. You're the, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you're the one that came up with the marketing campaign Dodger Blue. You had Tommy Lasorda in 77 as your team manager, bringing Frank Sinatra to sing the national anthem. What a grand way to open that season. Talk about what that was like, pulling all that together.
Well, you fellas have done your homework, because the Dodgers opening day, other than the first game ever played in Los Angeles, was not an event. And as you have noted, I mean, there would be a night game, whether we were opening up, didn't make any difference what the team was. It was usually a kind of a cool April evening, and I wanted to make opening day an event. And you're right, it was I had started the theme and promoting the theme of Dodger Blue, and there's quite a bit of story on the background of how that evolved. And then in 1977, Tommy, of course, was our manager, and if you're going to carry out a theme, there's nobody to spread that theme any better than Tommy. And so 1977, opening day was really established as an event. Frank sang the national anthem, Frank Sinatra, great day. And now opening day is the first day on the Dodgers schedule to sell out. So it was really an accomplishment of the efforts of a lot of people, but carrying out a theme that worked. And, of course, I knew we had established Dodger Blue as a theme, a strong theme and a brand, when one year there was Union Oil put out a bumper sticker. It had 2 words. It had no logo, no baseball. It simply said, "Think Blue," and everybody in Los Angeles knew what it meant.
That's great. Bob, questions for Fred?
Yes, Fred, it's great to speak with you. We still have people out here in the New York area who are still perturbed at Walter O'Malley for moving the team, but you worked for the majority of your time under Peter out there. Fred, I just wanted to get your opinion on the O'Malleys, especially Peter as a boss. It seemed to change so much when Fox took over, but take me back to the O'Malley days, and what was Peter like as a boss?
Well, I was very fortunate in joining the Dodgers in 1969, not only working with Peter, but also for Walter O'Malley. So right. I had that great experience of walking into major league meetings with Walter O'Malley, knowing Walter O'Malley. I mean, he was a true visionary, and so many great accomplishments, and the ability to look ahead. And so that experience, and the O'Malley family, as far as working for Walter and Peter, in my view, it doesn't get any better than that. They assigned the responsibility, and that's how the roles were carried out. And I've often said that they were their best in the toughest of times, unlike a lot of ownerships that you see today, because their feeling was that an organization's strength was the depth of the organization. So it wasn't one person, be it the manager or the general manager or any other individual, that was going to determine the success of the team. It was going to be a collective effort. And that's what the Dodgers did. And, of course, we had great continuity. We had two managers, Walter Alston and Tommy, over 40 years. But it went much deeper than that. We had only 2 or 3 general managers in that time, 2 or 3 ticket managers, traveling secretaries. It was the continuity and the dedication of the office. And Walter and Peter were absolutely the very best people and just great to work for.
And you mentioned Lasorda, Fred. I mean, I had this opportunity to interview him in depth about a year ago, and he still is pretty sharp, and he still bleeds, quote unquote, Dodger blue. He is one of those guys that at the time a lot of us who just follow baseball in general thought he was kind of a circus act, possibly, but when you got to know and look at his entire career, there was no one more dedicated to that organization than him.
No, that's absolutely true. Tommy loved the Dodgers, loved baseball, was totally dedicated to the organization, and his contributions speak for themselves. And he deserves exactly the status that he has as a Hall of Fame manager. And so just a tremendous career. And Tommy continues to stay involved, but he was always competitive, wanting to win, wanting to bring people together, and just a tremendous individual, and, of course, an icon of the game.
We are talking to former Dodgers General Manager and Executive Vice President Fred Clare here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Fred, just a couple more before we let you go, but kind of wanted to go back to, as we talked about, opening day and the great things that, the great spectacle that you made of that and the success that was. 1978, the Dodgers become the first team to ever draw 3 million in attendance. I got to imagine, Peter O'Malley is thinking to himself, this Fred Clare guy is a genius. Have you had an opportunity really just to kind of sit back and kind of, look over all of the great success that you had and with the things that you brought to the Dodgers and really take in, boy, this was some great stuff.
That attendance that year was 3,347,845.
Wow.
First team to pass 3 million. I was excited. And when I got to work the next morning, I had a note to go see Mr. Walter O'Malley. So I walked into Walter O'Malley's office, and I was sure that I was going to get a raise. And he said to me, young man, he said, couldn't you have fibbed just a little bit? And I said, I don't understand you, Walter. I don't understand what you're saying. He said, look, he said, see, in those days we only announced paid attendance, people who bought the ticket and were in the seat. And he said, Fred, he said, we drew 3,347. He said, you could just add a little bit to that and made it 3,500,000 because he said, I want to tell you something. We will never get this far again in attendance. And I said, Mr. O'Malley, I guarantee you we will break that record again. I'm confident we will break that record. And so I walked out of his office, and I'm driving home, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I didn't get a raise. I just made a pledge that we were going to break the all-time record. That was the humor and the genius and how I treasured the relationship with Mr. O'Malley.
And Fred, as we corresponded back and forth leading up to the show, and as I mentioned in your introduction, you're in a new venture now, Scoutables.com. Great site, by the way. I went out and checked it out. It's really fantastic.
Well,
talk about what Scoutables is and what people can see when they go on there.
thank you very much for the mention. And fans can see what we're involved with by going to www.scoutables.com. And what we really have developed, and my partner is a gentleman by the name of Ari Kaplan, certainly a genius in the world of technology. We are able now on your phone, on our website, to produce the same type of machine-generated analytics, scouting reports that is the same type of information that major league clubs use to make their decisions. For the first time, the fan is able to see this type of information. So it is the cutting edge of what's being done in baseball today, and we see tremendous opportunities, be it from the standpoint of a consumer app, be it as related to fantasy. We're talking and working with teams related to injury risk analysis, which is critically important. So there are many avenues that we have, and we've been very fortunate. One of the leading executives of IBM Watson Analytics has invested with us, as has Ideal Lab, a very well-known tech incubator in Pasadena, and an old friend named Oral Hershiser, who knows a thing about baseball and analytics. So we've got great footing. We're in a very, very exciting area because, as we know, whether it's baseball, whether it's finance, it doesn't make any difference what area that we're involved with. It is data and analytics that's driving our world today, and I really believe that the team that we've assembled, we have a tremendous, tremendous team in the areas of technology and design and expertise. We're just very excited about our future, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a great site. I really enjoyed playing around with it over the last couple of days. Fred, there's a million questions. I'm sure Bob and it feels the same way. So many things that we'd love to get into with you. We hope you'll come back and join us again sometime to talk through it. So much that you've done, into the 80s and into up to now, obviously with Scoutables. But unfortunately, we don't have enough time to get into all of it tonight. I hope you'll come back and join us again sometime.
Very, very definitely. Anytime you would like to have me on the show, give me a yell, and I'd be happy to be there. I'm always happy to promote the game of baseball, to share the experiences that I have, and to be of whatever assistance that I can be to young people who want to get into the game. And that's one reason why I've placed a tremendous emphasis on education for young people interested in the business world of sports.
There you go. Well, Fred, how can our listeners follow you online and over social media to keep up to date with all the things you're doing?
Well, I guess it's in the basics. They can certainly see background on our company at scoutables.com, and then I can be found on Facebook and Twitter.
All right. Very good. Fred, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to be a part of the show. We look forward to catching up with you again, hopefully really soon.
Great to be with you.
Thank you, Fred.
All right, take care, Fred. That is former Dodgers GM and Executive Vice President Fred Clare. And, Bob, certainly a million questions, and hopefully we get an opportunity to get him back on pretty quickly. So many of the deals that he was a part of, right, as a general manager, you make good deals, you make ones that you may look back on and go, ooh, I wish I hadn't have done that. I had read that there was a deal in the works at one time between the Dodgers and the Pirates. The Dodgers were going to give up Jeff Hamilton and John Wetland for Barry Bonds back in '89. I wonder how close that deal got to getting done. What stopped that thing from happening?
Yeah, Chris, when we talk to him the next time, we can really get into – there's just too much. As you said, the GM position, and I continue to say to it every time I see a deal made, it's probably the toughest job in the world when you think about it, how much of a crapshoot everything is these days. And to be in a hot seat like he was for 10 years and to have some success and having worked before it got sold out to Fox, I mean, there's a lot more we can get to. And, again, another versatile guy, Chris, with the journalism background into the GM position. And we can talk to him about Vin Scully. And we look forward to having him on again.
Yeah, no question. And, again, what a success he made, of the Dodgers, when he took over as GM, and the great things that he was, able to do and be a part of, and an amazing man. I was, very honored when he accepted the invitation to join us tonight. So, yeah, we got to get him back on again real soon.
Yep, can't wait.
All right, we've got our next guest, Kevin Reilly, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Kevin on the other side of this station identification.
This is Christine Lisi, and you're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate, where NFL stars go to tell their stories with Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
And now back with us, making his fourth appearance on the Kyvan Foods guest line, is one of the most inspirational guests that we've ever had here on TNT, and that's Kevin Reilly. Let me quickly remind you about Kevin's background. He is from Wilmington, Delaware, played his college ball at Villanova. He was a seventh-round draft pick by the Miami Dolphins in 1973 and was later traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. Played linebacker and was special teams captain for the Eagles in 1973 and 74. And he played with the New England Patriots in 1975 before a rare form of cancer took Kevin's left arm, shoulder, and 5 ribs, but not his life or his enthusiasm for it. He went on to have a 30-year career with Xerox. He's a wonderful motivational speaker, and you can hear him doing the Eagles pre- and post-game shows on CBS Radio up in Philly, and we are honored that he is back with us tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Kevin, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Welcome back,
Hey,
Kevin.
Chris and Bob, long time no talk to. Glad to be back.
Great to hear you.
So, Kevin, last week, Bob and I, we had another Villanova alumni on the show with us, Brian Finneran, and Brian got to do some color analysis for CBS Radio during the national championship game. Chris Jenkins took the shot about 15 feet from where Brian was broadcasting when Villanova obviously had the shot to beat North Carolina. But I'm curious for you, describe what was it like for you when you're watching and that shot went in?
Well, first of all, let me just say you got Brian Finneran, Mr. Westbrook now, and, of course, Howie Long and myself. You know, all we do is produce broadcasters out there at Villanova. I just want to make that clear. But
Good one.
I got to tell you, I don't know that I've ever been that deep in despair and then that exuberant in elation in 15 seconds that happened to me during that 15-second stretch. From one unbelievable shot to the next. And I was with my entire family, extended family. There probably were 30 of us. I got 10 grandkids. The younger ones were scared by the roar, but the older ones, I think, will never forget it. Tremendous, just tremendous play. And, you know, when they beat Georgetown back for their first championship, that was exciting, but nothing could top this. And I just was beside myself. What a night and what a victory for Villanova.
That's right. So, Kevin, as we turn to football and the Eagles, and we've got rookies and some select veterans are scheduled to report to training camp, this coming Monday. Before we talk about this year's team, kind of curious to get what you remember about training camp. What was it like for you when you reported to Eagles camp back in the 70s?
Well, actually, I reported to the Dolphins camp. Here I am, 22 years old, guys. I'm down there in the locker room. I'm a seventh-round draft pick, and there's 25 of us that are vying for 2 open slots on the Dolphins squad. Don Shula, who was our head coach, was a big believer that you lead the dance with the girl you came with. He had just won a Super Bowl. You'll remember that 1972 team was the last team to go undefeated in the NFL throughout a whole season. So, you look around the locker room, and I'm saying to myself, my goodness, there's only going to be 2 slots available. There's 25 guys, in the hunt for it, and the coaches didn't even think that I was, I had to be the 7th best guy they looked at because they picked 6 guys before me. And I tell you, guys, looking around the locker room at 22 and coming from the small state of Delaware and playing with Villanova was Division I football, but it wasn't Alabama and Notre Dame type football. I'm in a locker room with guys that I've been reading about in Sports Illustrated since I was a junior in high school. And for the first couple of days, I was totally intimidated, and it was getting to me a little bit mentally. And plus, they weren't waiting for the rookies to catch up. I don't know if you remember, but they had that 53 defense that was really a novelty. And to me, it was one of the hardest things I ever learned, the college courses included. And, so it was tough catching on. And I tell you, by about the 4th day, and you talk about the differences today and yesterday, we had 2.5-hour morning practices in the searing sun down there in Miami, and then 2.5-hour afternoon practices from 2:30 to 5 o'clock. And that year, 1973, was the last year that it happened, but there was no water on the field. You know, it was back in that era before they started, you know, giving you water on the field. So it was the closest thing to basic training in a Marine camp, I think, that you'll see. These guys today, I think the practices are only allowed to be 90 minutes, and they totally are given water and Gatorade and whatever they need on the field during the practices, and if it gets too hot, they even go to shells and helmets. Whole different ball game, and I understand it because of the value of these guys now and the big contracts they had. But back in the day, it was sheer torture. And by the way, there were 6 exhibition games. And being down there with Miami that year, we played one extra one because they played the College All-Stars as the Super Bowl champs. So I had 7 games under my belt and 2 scrimmages, which would have been 1 game short of a college season before we even started the regular season. Quite a change,
wow.
I would say, going from college to the pros.
Bob, questions, Kevin?
It's great to speak with you again, Kevin. And when we talked to Brian Finneran last week, there's a lot of pride in his voice about Villanova. And we're talking not just basketball, as we know it's a basketball school, Kevin, but those of us who follow FCS football, they've been very successful, for a while now, and kind of don't get their props as far as on the football side of it. But I'm sure people like you are out there to remind people that it's just not a basketball factory.
Well, not only that, I had the pleasure last year of being the analyst for Villanova Radio, and I'm going to do it again this year.
Right.
And, guys, I will tell you that, you know, a lot of people fell in love with that basketball team because of their camaraderie, their teamwork, and they're just really, really good kids. I want to tell you, and I know I'm being biased, but that permeates through the entire student-athlete at Villanova. I happened to MC their senior sports banquet this year, and one young lady represented the entire student-athletes and spoke for them. And she had them stand up after certain awards, like all national champions, please stand up. Of course, the basketball team and a couple track guys stood up, and anybody who's been in a championship game, you know, and she went on until her last thing. She had went through about 8 of these questions. Her last question was, anybody who's been on the dean's list for over a year, please stand up. And at that point, she had 116 senior student athletes standing, and her last phrase was, and they're all going to graduate in 3 days. And I'll tell you what, you got to be proud of a program that can boast that kind of graduation rate and still be, you know, top of the line with basketball and track. We're not quite there in football because we're, you know, FCS, but I'm very proud of the FCS program and the national championship they won a few years ago. So it's a great school. I'm very, very proud of my alma mater, and I can tell you what you saw on the basketball court over the NCAA playoffs pretty much permeates through all the teams, including tennis and badminton and swimming.
Kevin, I noticed your 2 years playing for the Eagles, one of the notable assistant coaches on that team was Dick LeBeau, and we know about the Hall of Fame career and credentials this guy has. What kind of effect did he have on you? I know he was a special teams coach, but did he make his presence felt?
Oh, he sure did. You know, we continue to kid him to this day. The guy is approaching 80 years old, if he's not there yet, and we call him the Dick Clark of the NFL coaches. He still looks like he's in his mid-60s. Yeah. And it was his first year out of playing, you know, professional football. And I know he played 15 or 16 years, and he was all pro most of those years. And this was his first coaching opportunity with special teams with the Philadelphia Eagles. I have never played for a coach that I wanted to play for and wanted to impress more than Dick LeBeau. He took that player, you know, concept that he had, and he wrapped the coaching part around it. He understood what we were going through as players, especially the special teamers. You know, you play with small injuries. You don't complain about things because it'll be the next man up and you'll be out of the game. Dick understood that. What I really, truly loved about him is he never screamed or got upset with you if you made a mistake. And I'll just give you, for instance, on a kickoff return team, my job was to make a block on somebody and take him out of the play. And if I did that the first 3 times, but I whiffed on my 4th attempt, he would just run the film back and say, "Now, Kevin, I know that you got this guy 3 times before, and it's hard to be perfect and get them 4 in a row, but we got to have it. You got to get it done." And he would leave it with that and leave you with some dignity. He always had a way of patting you on the back, but also being, critiquing you in a way that you knew that it was meant to be constructive. And I can't always say that happened in other locker rooms that I played in the NFL.
We are talking to former Eagles and Patriots linebacker Kevin Reilly here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Kevin, a couple more before we let you go. To kind of fast forward to this season, the majority of the talk this offseason has been centered around, from an Eagles perspective, Sam Bradford and, his desire to be traded after they drafted Carson Wentz, number 2 overall. What kind of reception do you think Bradford's going to get from Eagles fans when they get to the home opener against the Browns on September 11th?
Well, let me just give you a little insight. I run Dick Vermeil's celebrity golf tournament, and Dick and I are pretty good friends, and he's been able to watch 2 of the practices, the OTAs, and he told me that Dan Bradford is throwing the ball with a lot of conviction right now and very, very accurate, hitting guys in the hands, on the move, and he said Wentz is going to be a very good quarterback, but you can really see the difference between the 2 of them right now. And I think that if Bradford comes out with the right attitude, and I think he will, I think it was an overreaction on his part. If they had social media back in the day, I think guys like Babe Ruth would have gotten in trouble for saying things. But you know how things get out there so quickly now. Mm-hmm. And, I think if Bradford comes out and he plays hard, what the Philadelphia fans really want from you, they want you to play hard. They just want you to play hard and give it your best shot. If he does that, I think he'll be successful. And I think that all will be forgiven if he comes out and really plays lousy the first couple of games. Well, it's Philadelphia. They'll be calling for Wentz to come in. They already look at this as a rebuilding year. But, guys, I'll tell you, I happened to spend a little time with Doug Peterson at Vermeil's tournament. He came to play golf, and it was right after the OTAs. And one of the things he said is nobody got hurt during the OTAs. Hey, that's a big bonus. You know how guys tear up their knees and stuff. And some of the trades they made in the off season, I thought were just beautiful. Getting rid of some guys that really couldn't play for them or in that offense or defense, and being able to pick up some real strong parts that they needed to fill some gaps. I wouldn't be surprised if this team is just a little over 500 this year and starts to really rebuild in a nice way. So we'll see what happens. But Sam is quite a talent, and I think the biggest question is, can he stay healthy?
Mm-hmm. And Kevin, we lost a member of the Eagles, one of the great Eagles of all time, Marion Campbell. He was a former Eagles defensive lineman, obviously a head coach, passed away last week. I'm just curious if you ever had an opportunity to be around Marion Campbell.
Well, I did, just to say hello. I didn't play for him, but Bill Berge and John Bunning, who were on the teams with me before that, played with him, had the utmost respect for him as a defensive coordinator and as a head coach. And we also lost, another really great coach, and Buddy Ryan. And I got a real quick funny story about Buddy. His first year in the league, I took advantage of him not being that well known, our first year in Philadelphia, and got him to speak at my high school football athletic banquet. The Lazy Adam High School is an all-boys high school, and the kids all wear tuxes. It's really a nice affair. And I picked him up in Philadelphia to make sure that he got there on time, and we hit it off right away. He had been to Sloan Kettering for melanoma when he was with the Jets, and we had something in common. We had both, survived cancer at that hospital. So we were hitting it off pretty good. And I hear on the radio that there's a backup on I-95, so I start to go through the back roads in Chester, Pennsylvania, where we had training camp when I was with the Eagles. So I was familiar with that. And I'm probably driving just a little bit recklessly because I'm anxious to get him there. And I look over, and only his buddy, and he's holding on to the help handle, they called him, on the passenger side, the little handle that was above the door. And he looked like he was a little nervous. And I said, "Coach, you okay?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, Riles." He said, "I just didn't think I'd be running through Chester, Pennsylvania tonight at 60 miles an hour with a one-armed man." So that was Buddy. Buddy said what was on his mind, and I think that's why the players loved him. But both of those guys were icons and dearly beloved by the Philadelphia fans.
We're talking to Kevin Reilly, former Eagles and Patriots linebacker. We've got our next guest, Terrence Edwards, hanging on the line. We're going to get to Terrence in just a moment. Kevin, before we let you go, as I mentioned in your intro, you're a fantastic motivational speaker now. What events have you got coming up, and for folks that want to try to come and see you and listen to you and hear the things that you talk about, how can they catch up with you?
Well, they can go to my website. It's kreilly.com, or K and REILLY.com, and there'll be my some of my speaking engagements that are coming up. And guys, I guess it's from playing special teams where you got to be versatile, but I'm talking to all kinds of crowds now. 2 years ago, Johnny Harbaugh had me come down and talk to the Ravens. I talked to the Eagles. I do high school kids. I've even done grade school kids, and I do corporations. So I'm out there doing a lot of it because a lot of the message is like we've talked before. I'm writing a book right now, and it's going to be centered around the 4 F's of life that I consider to be important: faith, family, friends, and fortitude. And, one of the lessons I've learned from hanging around Dick Vermeil is people don't care about how much you know until people know about how much you care. And that's going to be kind of the culture of the book itself. And, that's what I try to get across in different ways to all those different audiences that I speak to. So if anybody's interested in having me, just go to my website, and we'll be glad to get in contact with you and see what we can do.
That's great stuff. Kevin, thank you so much for coming back on the show, making time to come back on the show. You're so fantastic. We always enjoy the time. It's never enough time when we get to have you on the show. Remind our listeners as well, how else can they keep track of you over social media?
Well, they can go. I'm on the Facebook. They can go to Facebook and join the other 5,000 friends that I have, and I do a little updating every week when we get into the Eagles season on what I see and what I don't see. So that's probably the best way right now. And I would just like to say, guys, please have me back during the season when this Eagles team is maybe halfway through the season, and we'll see if how they're faring at that time, and I'll give you my insight on that and the NFC East, which I think is going to be a real interesting division this year.
Absolutely, we'll have you back on. We can't wait to have you back on, as a matter of fact. Kevin, thank you again for being a part of the show. We look forward to catching up with you again real soon, my friend.
Bob and Chris,
in between
have
now
a great
and then.
night. It's always a pleasure.
Our pleasure.
All right, take care, Kevin. That is former Eagles and Patriots linebacker Kevin Reilly. Bob, we've been blessed to have Kevin on the show a few times in the past, and it's just, that from the moment he's on to the moment he's gone, it seems like it's a blink of an eye. It's just never enough time to get to hear Kevin's stories, and like I say, what a great motivational speaker he is, and it's always uplifting when we get to spend some time with him.
That's the word, Chris, that was on my tongue, uplifting. He is one of the better motivational speakers out there, and we've talked more in depth with him in other shows about some of the motivational stuff he does, but and we'll get back to that. But we could play any of his interviews for our Spotlight on the Positive, Chris, because he always brightens the day and knows a lot about football to boot. So we're honored always when he comes on.
That's exactly right. All right, before we get to our next guest, Terrence Edwards, I want to give a shout-out to our good friend Renee Shull at Career Engagement Institute. Folks, you hear us bragging on Renee every single week on this show, but if you're upside down in your career, and what we mean by that is, you want to move on, well, go to careerengagement.institute to see how Renee can help you. You heard Toy Cook, talk about her, a couple of months ago when Toy was on the show, singing her praises. You hear us singing her praises every single week. And if you work with her for 2 minutes, you too are going to be singing her praises. You're going to understand why we do that, because Renee is just so fantastic. We all want to work with someone that we can trust and who actually has our best interests at heart. You know how hard it is to find somebody like that. Well, you're not going to find someone who fits that bill any better than Renee Shull. She is smart. She is creative, very talented, the kind of person you want to work with and have working for you. She's been doing some great things with some of our guests who have been in transition from being pro athletes and are now getting into the job market. Folks, I am telling you, Renee is just the very best. There isn't a better way to describe her than that. if you're an athlete or anyone in the job market, do yourself a favor and reach out to Renee. You're going to be so very glad that you did. Go to careerengagement.institute online. Give her a follow on Twitter at Integrated Play. All right, now back with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is Terrence Edwards. Let me remind you about Terrence's background. He's from Tennille, Georgia, which is just down the street from my fiance's hometown of Sandersville, Georgia, which means nothing to anyone besides Terrence right now, but it's in the central part of the state. Terrence played his college ball at the University of Georgia from 1999 to 2002, and he is still their all-time leader in pass receptions, total receiving yards in a season, career touchdown receptions, single-season touchdown receptions, and most receptions by a senior. His receiving records go beyond the University of Georgia. He is sixth all-time in receptions in SEC history, third all-time in receiving yards, and he is third all-time in touchdown receptions. Yet somehow, when undrafted in the draft, he was signed as an undrafted free agent by the Atlanta Falcons in 2003. He was with the Falcons in 2003 and 2004. Played up in the Canadian Football League from 2005 to 2013 with the Toronto Argonauts, Montreal Alouettes, and Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He was an all-star up in the CFL in 2007, 2010, and 2011. And during his Canadian Football League career, he had 508 receptions for a little over 7,600 yards, and he scored 47 touchdowns. And we're very excited he is back with us again tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Terrence, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Welcome back. Thanks for having me. And correction, Tennille and Sandersville is in the same city, so we all go to the same high school. So we all one.
Is that right? All right.
That is one. So we're actually twin cities. We all attend the same high school.
Oh, okay. Very cool. So Terrence, let's go back to your time at the University of Georgia, and do you wonder, when you look back at all the accomplishments that you had there, how in the world you went undrafted? Was it a head shaker for you as it was for me as I read over all your stats?
It was a head shaker, but as a professional and someone spent 11 years in the business, I kind of understand, don't agree with it, but I understand what, sometimes that they are looking for in a receiver. So, I'm 6'1", never was the biggest. I didn't run for my size, I didn't run a 4.29. I ran a 4.4, but, there were some knocks on me, I guess, coming out, but as you turn on the film in the XCC, and one of the best conferences ever, to me it's about can the man play football or not, and I proved that I could play. I made, as an undrafted free agent, I made the team for 2 years over some of the guys that the Atlanta drafted that year, and, I went on and had a great Canadian career, so, I still scratch my head 14 years later, but, I have no regrets the route that God took me.
Did any of the scouts or anyone in the league ever say anything to you heading into the draft? What the knock was? Because, and I guess this kind of gets back to you look at people at the combine, right? This guy or that guy, they sure are great in shorts and a t-shirt. But to your point, I mean, you put up all the stats, you put up all the numbers. The game film is sitting right there. Shouldn't that be the thing that people judge whether you can play the game or not, is how well you played it at a high level in probably the toughest conference in college football?
I think so, but, to me, I'm not behind the scenes and don't really have have never been behind the scenes, but to me, it just seemed like the game feel is devalued, and, what you do in shorts and a T-shirt, put more stock in it than anything. I've seen guys who didn't have the career I had, but, was a little bigger, probably a little faster, and was like, oh, he's what we're looking for. But his production wasn't even close to mine, so how can you choose him over me? And it just seemed like production sometimes don't get the same value as someone who tests off the charts at the combines.
And Terrence, as I was, kind of looking over, your game by game stats and things of that nature, did you know going into, your last few games at Georgia how close you were to Chris Doering's all-time SEC touchdown record? You ended up finishing one behind him, and even as I was looking at the last game you played in, it was against Georgia Tech, and you crushed those guys 51-7. No touchdown catches, unbelievable. No touchdown catches in that game. Did you ever Go over and get in David Green's ear. Like, come on, man. Give me one in the end zone here.
I actually didn't know how close I were to actually after I finished, and I think I saw my bio in the Senior Bowl. In the Senior Bowl, and I realized that I was one behind him. And actually, at Georgia Tech game, I was coming off an injury. I didn't play the Auburn game where Micah Johnson had like 10 catches for 130-some yards and a game-winning touchdown. But he replaced me in that game. So those balls that he caught actually would have been the balls that would have been my balls in that game. So, you know, it was opportunities for me to break the record. But actually, I didn't even know about it till after my playing days was over with.
Oh, okay. Bob, questions for Terrence?
And Terrence, at that time you did spend with the Falcons. You were around our good friend Brian Finneran and guys like Algie Crumpler and I think Peerless Price was on that team. You probably look back, Terrence, and think to yourself, yeah, it might have been short-lived, but I did learn something from being around some guys. Are there people in that organization you still remain close to? Are there guys that really helped you become the player you did in Canada?
I actually talk to Peerless very often. We talk a lot, actually, through text, through Facebook. I just saw Brian Finneran recently at the G-Day game, and I saw him recently at St. Pius, where I worked a football camp, where his son was a participant there. So we reconnected that. And Algie is one of the best guys on that team. And I wish I could actually talk to Algie. I haven't seen Algie in a long time. But so I actually still do talk to a few guys off that team, and mainly Peerless Price.
That's great. And I was looking at your Canadian stats, Terrence, and from that year, 2006, with Montreal to 2007 is when you really made a name for yourself. And you played twice as many games, and you went from 33 catches to 80. Could you tell, Terrence, after that 2007 wonderful season, how much a number it did on your body? Could you tell that you played an incredibly amount of football that year?
Yes, I could. Going from college to the NFL, where I didn't play as much, then going to the CFL, where I still was trying to break into the line. In 2007, I actually played 22 games. That's 2 preseason. Wow. Then we played 18 regular season. Then that team ended up making it to the Grey Cup that year. We lost in the finals, but I played in every game. So that's 22 games that I played in, and played in all of them. Didn't come out, didn't get hurt, nicks and bruises. But that year I really understood what I needed to do to keep my body fresh throughout the whole football season. I wasn't never a big ice tub guy, but after that season, I was in the ice tub more than usual.
and speaking of that, the time with Saskatchewan, you go up there and you ended up in the Grey Cup game. I'm curious to get your thoughts, Terrence, as you look at what it was. You had the experience of playing in a Grey Cup, Canadian Football League's version of the Super Bowl. What was that experience like for you, and how do you think that compares to the NFL Super Bowl?
I think it compares. Yes, we know that the NFL is probably the biggest sporting event organization or a sport in the world. We understand it, but in the Canadian Football League, a lot of people don't know that the CFL is actually older than the NFL. And early back in the 80s and the early 90s, a lot of Rocky Ismails and Doug Fluters and all those guys, Warren Moon, they actually went to the CFL first and played there because they was playing pretty good money up there, and it's a big deal. So revenue-wise, we're not close to the NFL, but for the athletes, that game is one of the biggest games of your career, even if you've been in the Super Bowl at the moment. It's, the two best teams get an opportunity to square off. And, the festivities during the week is just like the Super Bowl. It just, I guess they say it's a smaller version of what the NFL, the Super Bowl is. So I had opportunity to play in 3 Grey Cups. Didn't win one. But it was a great experience for me and my family to be able to go and see what it feels like to be in the biggest stage in your league.
And And then over that 5 or 6 year stretch, Terrence, from 07 to 2012, you had over 1,000 yards in receiving, all but one of those years. At some point during that span, as you're rising to be an all-star up there, did anyone from the NFL ever come knocking on the door, try to lure you back?
No, they never did, and I wouldn't have even entertained it. I did have my short time in the NFL, and it was great, but I wasn't one of those that, I didn't say chase the NFL because I've already experienced it. If I didn't experience it, maybe I would have tried to go back and get hooked on with a team. But I wasn't going to go and be, fight for a job in the NFL when I was very secure in my position in the Canadian Football League. So the opportunity, if the opportunity was there for us, going in, it's nothing guaranteed in that game. But if they would have guaranteed me, a good portion of the signing bonus and that, I may have thought about it. But it never crossed my mind. I was very happy playing in the CFL. I was very happy being one of the top guys in the league, and that's why I play the game, go and show people my talent. And and I was. People ask me that question all the time, and I can honestly 100% tell you that I really enjoyed my time in the CFL, and I don't think I would have tried to go and fight for a job in the NFL when I already had one.
And you talked about how successful some of the teams that you played on were, but as you look at your best statistical year in 2010, you had just under 1,400 yards receiving. You scored 12 touchdowns. You were still with Winnipeg at that time, and it was a tough year for Winnipeg. You guys finished 4-14, setting a CFL record though for the most games they lost by 4 points or less in the season. So, you guys did that 8 times. So, you could have easily 4-14 could have easily been 12-6. How frustrating was it to be just barely losing game after game?
That was probably one of the most frustrating years of playing football. We had a really good team, but for some reason, we gave the game away in the end, or something would happen where we would lose by 4 points or less. And week in and week out, it was very, very frustrating. And the next year, I think we ended up going to the Grey Cup. So that team actually grew up and learned how to finish games the next year because we was in so many close battles. So it was a very frustrating year. I had a great year statistically that year. And it was kind of bittersweet for me because I know the team that we had, and we had a great opportunity, but we just let game after game slip from us. But then the next year, we go in and reach the Grey Cup, and fortunately we didn't win it. It was a really good close game against the BC Lions, but that year was very frustrating because of those 8 games that we lost with 4 points or less.
Mm-hmm. Bob, more for Terrence?
And Terrence, while you were in Winnipeg, like yourself, was there another player or probably more that you would say to yourself, there's no doubt in my mind that this guy belongs in the NFL, but I'm glad they're here?
I actually played against a lot of guys like Brandon Browner, played against Brandon Browner, Cam Wake. Both of those guys went on and had great years in the NFL. And there's another guy I just played with recently, Chris Matthews. He was actually the guy who came out of nowhere in the Super Bowl with the Seahawks a few years ago and had like 104 yards in the Super Bowl game. The year the Seattle lost against, I think it's the Patriots. They ended up losing. But he was there with me for 1 year, and just a talent of a guy, 6'5", 220-pound receiver. I just knew that he was going to get an opportunity down south because he came in as a rookie. He was CFL Rookie of the Year. He actually led the team in receiving yards that year. With I think right at 1,200, I had right at 1,100. But now he's with the Baltimore Ravens, so I just knew he was going to have an opportunity to play. I just think he just needed a little bit more season as a pro and as a wide receiver, and that came true. He's 3-4 years in the NFL now. He's doing a great job.
And Terrence, you were still very productive in your final year in Canada, over 500 yards catching the ball, 47 catches, and you were approaching your 35th birthday when you announced your retirement. Was it a question Terrence, that you couldn't play up to your ability anymore? Was it the bumps and bruises? Was it that you just had enough? What was the telling decision for you?
It was a lot going into my decision. A lot of people don't know that I actually had major surgery in that off season on my right foot. I tore all my ligaments in my right foot, so I never played 100% that year at all. I mean, not one game. I was probably 75% that whole year. So, in the next off season, I was ready to go. I was healthy. I was good, and family issues. My older son was starting kindergarten. I didn't feel like taking him in and out of school, because of something that I was doing. I had a great 11-year career plan. I just thought at that time, talking with my wife, it was just, time for me to move on. I think the team, I don't know what the team situation was. They didn't force me, or I went to them and just told them, it was time for me to move on. I had a great career, and I'm always going to be part of that organization, but it was just a lot of those things, bumps and bruises. The body was just telling me, I don't know how much longer you're going to be able to do this at a high level. And, I always wanted to say I want to go off in my own terms. So, I kind of, sit down and did the pros and cons and just realized, I'm going to just walk away in the sunset while, I have 2 boys and they love football and they love sports. So I want to be able to play with them in the backyard. So, a lot of those factors went into my decision, and I think it was the right decision at the time.
Terrence, remind our listeners what you're doing now.
Now, I'm here in Atlanta. I own my own training facility now. It's Terrence Edwards Wide Receiver Academy. So I'm here in the Atlanta area, training these young wide receivers, and that is my passion. I've learned how to play this. Took 20 years of this game and learning my craft to the utmost as I could, and I'm giving these kids an opportunity to learn what I've learned, and I'm giving back to them. And it's been like a year and about 4 months since I started doing it, and I go around and just working counsel and sharing my knowledge with the kids.
And how can our listeners stay up to date and find out more information about if they're interested in the camp and keep track of all the great things you're doing? How can they follow you on social media?
They can find me on Facebook at Terrence Edwards, and also I have a Terrence Edwards Wide Receiver Academy page, so you can click on both of them. You just search my name, and on Twitter is Terrence Edwards at 82. On Twitter, you can see a lot of stuff, a lot of guys that I'm training, what I got going on, training session times, and contact information to contact me if you're interested in getting your son some training sessions.
There you go. Terrence, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back on the show. We always enjoy getting to spend some time with you. Hope you'll come back during the season and share some more of your thoughts and insights with us, because you're fantastic.
Anytime you want me, you reach out to me. I'm happy to do this.
I appreciate it, Terrence. Thank you very much. Like I say, have a great night. All the best to you and your family. We look forward to catching up with you again real soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. That is former University of Georgia, and he played several teams up in the Canadian Football League: Toronto Argonauts, Montreal Alouettes, Winnipeg Bombers. But great wide receiver, Bob, and I still shake my head every time we've had been blessed to have Terrence on the show. This is second or third time he's been able to join us. But do you look over his stats and the things that he achieved at the University of Georgia, which is everyone knows one of the best college football teams year in and year out, and you set those kind of records, and even just even at the SEC level, he's getting top 5 or 6 in categories at the SEC level. To think that a guy with that talent didn't get drafted, I mean, really, come on. You're really going to value the combine over what this kid did in college? That it shakes my head every time, Bob.
It is crazy what scouts are looking at, Chris. Possibly size. I don't know what they were looking at this time, but there is no way a guy that can go to Canada, catch over 500 passes, probably would go down as one of the league's great receivers. If you look at his numbers, it's almost 8,000 yards in the air catching balls. I mean, he had an incredible, and I love his attitude, Chris. I had my taste. He was doing well up there, found a niche, and he went with it, and it paid off. Had a great career up there.
Yeah, 3-time All-Star. Again, he proved it out on the field. If all you care about is seeing some guys in shorts catching passes, I just don't understand what the value is in that. Yeah, that's nice. what do they do in a game? What did they do over the course of, a college career? What kind of numbers did they put up? They must have been doing something right to make, Terrence in this, specifically, must have been doing something right to make all those catches, to get all those yards, and to score all those touchdowns. He must have been doing, he must have been good. And again, it's not like we're talking about a kid who put up a bunch of numbers at the D3 level. We're talking about a guy that put up those numbers, like I say, and arguably the hardest or the toughest college football conference. You can argue that if you want, but certainly the SEC is at the top of the list for toughest conferences, and he put those numbers up in that conference. He must have had talent, and then he takes it and he goes up to the Canadian Football League and it's like, here's my body of work. See what you could have had, but you didn't. I'd shake my head.
Absolutely.
All
correct.
right. When Bob and I come back, we'll be turning on the Thursday Night Tailgate Spotlight on the Positive, and we'll wrap up the show, and we'll do that on the other side of these words from our friends at Coastal Orthopedics, Kevin Foods, and the French Lick Resort.
Are you suffering from chronic pain in your shoulders, hips, knees, or wrists? Tired of living life with an old injury that just won't go away? If you answered yes to either of these questions, we can help. At Coastal Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, Dr. Candelora and his fine staff of medical professionals will get you back on the road to recovery. Their state-of-the-art facility and attention to detail will ensure you will be enjoying life again and feeling invincible in no time. Since 1991, Dr. Candelora and Coastal Orthopedics have been specializing in joint replacement, arthritis, and osteoporosis care, as well as pediatric and adult general orthopedics. Visit us on the web, www.bone-dr.com, or call our Newport Richey office just north of Tampa at 727-848-1417. Proud sponsors of Mike Ditka's The Gridiron Greats Assistance Fund.
This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcon tight end, and I'm the owner of Kevin Foods. And if you enjoy delicious food, you're going to love my Kevin products, which consists of our honey apple salsa, sweet barbecue sauce, and an array of seasonings. For store locations, online orders, and recipes, check out our website at www.kyvan82.com. That's KYVAN 82.com. One taste, and you'll appreciate the goodness.
Now's the time to plan that golf getaway you've been dreaming about at French Lick Resort. We have new Golf Academy packages for 2016, guaranteed to take your game to the next level. Try our one-day Quick Fix Academy for golf emergencies. For more in-depth learning, try the Game Changer, designed to make you a better player. Our staff professionals are ready to work with you at French Lick Resort. Did you know there's only one place in the country that you can play courses designed by two members of the World Golf Hall of Fame on the same property? The Pete Dye and Donald Ross courses at French Lick Resort make us an ultimate golf destination for 2016. Check out the Ultimate Golf Package, the Hall of Fame Package, and other great offerings at FrenchLick.com. Let 2016 be that year you finally take your dream golf getaway at French Lick Resort. Play the courses champions play.
Hey, welcome back. This is Todd Washington, two-time Super Bowl champ, offensive line coach for the Baltimore Ravens, and you are listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with my boys Chris-Mascaro and bob-lazzari on the Armed Forces Radio Network. Go get them, guys.
And we're back on Thursday Night Tailgate, and we are turning on our spotlight on the positive. Bob, who do you have for us this week?
Chris, we're going to stay on the topic of very good wide receivers, and doing a little research today, came upon what Vincent Jackson from Tampa Bay is doing and has done in the past, Chris. He, first of all, military upbringing. Both of his parents were in the armed forces, and he's made it his, shall we say, his mission in life to give back to the military in ways without being enlisted. Now, this is a guy. Him and his wife came up with a book that they distribute to families of military people, Chris, kids, how to get used to the military lifestyle. It's kind of a it's a very, when you put it mildly, it's a very, very responsible gesture on his part, because there's no way to prepare for that kind of life. And his Jackson in Action Foundation, they just do so many things like that. He has career fairs, and he has baby showers, and this guy, anything that has to do with the military. And what really gets to me is at every home game, Chris, he calls it his Jackson in Action front row fans. All military families he'll have as his guest, sitting in front row seats to watch the game. But it's just a few of the things this guy does. Many scholarships. He has a Salute to Scholars program. I can't even touch what this guy does as far as the extent of his travels too, Chris. He has been to Afghanistan talking to troops, and if you Google pictures, you can find those. But he continues to do it. His career is winding down now. He had only played, I think, 10 games last year, but 9,000 yards receiving. That's a very, very good career, Chris, and he gets it done off the field as well.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. Bob, I'm going to put the spotlight on Carolina Panthers defensive end Charles Johnson. He recently hosted over 1,000 attendees and guests at his foundation's 5th Annual Sports Academy and Community Weekend in his hometown of Hawkinsville, Georgia, which is in the central part of the state. During the 2-day camp, Bob, they emphasized both sports and education for local students ranging from grades 1 to 12. The event is put on. It's free. They put on clinics, in football, basketball, dance, tennis, cheering. Many of Charles's, Panthers teammates are there, plus guys like Justin Houston and Frank Kurse and Fernando Velasco also there. And you may recall we put the spotlight on Fernando Velasco's, Right Choice Foundation for the work they do to promote academic excellence and character back a few months ago. So Fernando and Charles, both UGA alums as well. So on top of doing the free camp this year, Charles's foundation awarded 4 $20,000 scholarships to local student athletes. So far his foundation has supported 12 kids through college, and all of the camp participants, they also get free athletic shoes. Plus they did a special huddle with the 7th through 12th graders to emphasize the importance of education, and they took the 1st through 6th graders and they focused on literacy and reading. So kudos to Charles Johnson and everyone who helped out at that event. It's a fantastic event, and it's going to make a lasting impression on all those kids that were a part of it, and some of them going to get to go to college for free based on the scholarships there. So Bob, kudos to both Charles Johnson and Vincent Jackson, a couple of great guys.
Yeah, and that's what a way to end the show, Chris. Uplifting, and we try to keep it positive these days.
That's exactly right. All right, folks, tune in here every week here on Thursday Night Tailgate. You're going to get our Thursday Night Tailgate spotlight on the positive. You're going to hear about, guys that are doing great things in their community. So if you're tired of all the negative, and we hear a bunch of it every day on the media, whether it's the news or other sports shows that just like to rant and rave for however long they're on the air, come here and join us on Thursday Night Tailgate. You're going to hear great stories from guys in and around the league, other people that are in the media as well, like Matthew Laurance tonight, and then you get this Thursday Night Tailgate spotlight on the positive. So we try to keep it to Bob's point on the positive here. So please come back and join us every single week. Bob, it is time for us to put a bow on this episode, my friend. We want to, again, thank Matthew Laurance, Tony Collins, Fred Clare, Kevin Reilly, and Terrence Edwards for joining us tonight. And Bob, like I say every single week, the best part of it is get to spend my Thursday nights with you, my friend.
Oh, same here, Chris. You're very kind. That was some lineup tonight, and the pleasure is mine, sir.
Next week we're off. I'm actually headed out. I'm going to be at my annual golf trip with a few friends of mine, including my traveling co-host Angelo Kane, and our announcer Joe Lajanuso will be there as well. So always look forward to the annual golf outing with those guys. We have a blast. We'll be returning on August the 4th, and who do we have? Our scheduled guest on August 4th, former Cowboys, Giants, and Patriots linebacker Steve Diassi will be with us. Former Steelers wide receiver Dwight Stone will be back with us, as will former Steelers tackle Marvell Smith. Our good friend Billy Sample coming back. He's got a new book out there, so check that out online. Billy's got a nice new book from his time being in Yankee pinstripes, so we'll talk about that. And then, of course, former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins will be with us like he joins us every single week. I want to remind everyone, how can you follow us on social media? Well, please visit us on Facebook. We got a Facebook page, Thursday Night Tailgate, plus both Bob and I have Facebook pages as well, so please give the show page a like. That's important to us, and if you got a question or something you want us to get on air with one of our guests that are going to be joining us, please send it to us. We'll be glad to get it on the air for you. On Twitter, I am at CT-mascaro. Bob is at Bob_Lazzari, and the show is at TNT Podcast. You can stream or download any of our archive episodes by checking out our website, ThursdayNightTailgate.com. Plus, you can also stream it. We're on podcasting sites all over the net. You can find us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Blog Talk Radio, Podbean, Spreaker, Stitcher, Player.fm, and SoundCloud as well. So all over the net, you can stream or download any of our archive episodes for free on any of those sites that you're already hooked up with. Bob, take us home, my friend.
Thank you, Chris, and we'll talk soon again, my friend. And our thanks again to our announcer, Joe Lajanusa, for the great job he does with our weekly intro and ads, and to James Brocato and all the guys from Painted Faces for our upcoming outro music. On behalf of myself and Chris, we thank everyone tonight for listening. We appreciate you the most. Until next week, good night, Kevin. We miss you.